Black Myth Wukong is a wake-up call. This game, for many others, including myself, represents what many of us have been asking for a long time, which is just a game that's a game.
A good
Nothing
game.
else. No modern gaming trend chasing, no microtransactions, no live service model. It's not a platform for future expansions. It's just a game that's delivered at a fair price that gives us an incredible experience. That's exactly what this game is.
Imagine that.
Damn good one at that.
Yeah.
Through fabricated controversies and criticism steeped in biases, this game has persevered. It has sent shockwaves across the industry. It's exploded.
Well, it's because all of the IGN articles, like, about, like, how the game company is bad, all the Chinese people are like, well, I don't read English. They don't even see it. Yeah, they're not even seeing it. It doesn't even happen.
In popularity, and it's going to leave a lasting impact. Today, what I want to do is I want to talk about my experience with Black Myth Wukong, but more than that, I want to talk about how this game embarrassed the people that tried to stop it and what it means for games.
My favorite part about the whole controversy is the idea that all of the players are in China. Like, so what does that mean to you? Can you elaborate on what that means to you? What do you mean? So, they're all Chinese. Okay, all right. So, what do you mean by this? I don't know. It's so weird, isn't it? Yeah. So interesting.
The gaming industry is at a crossroads. For years, major publishers have doubled down on the belief that live service games are the future, insisting that players crave ongoing multiplayer experiences with microtransactions, season passes, and endless content updates. They've argued that single-player games are a relic of the past, too niche to sustain in an era where constant engagement and monetization
EA says people don't really enjoy linear games as much today. You got to cut the bridge when you realize you can't make a lot of money on something. That's crazy. Wow.
Yet, the past few years have told a completely different story. Games like Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, Tears of the Kingdom, and Hogwarts Legacy have not only shattered sales records, but have captured the hearts of millions of players worldwide. These widely single-player experiences, with their rich narratives, immersive worlds, and focus on player agency, have proven that there is a massive untapped hunger for games that prioritize quality over quantity, and meaningful experiences over endless grinds. Now entering the stage is Black Myth Wukong, a game from a country that is not necessarily known for releasing AAA titles, and it's another beacon of what players have been yearning for, a well-crafted, story-driven experience that delivers on its money. Telling the tale of one of the greatest, most...
It's just that the game is plays well. I feel like a lot of people don't understand how big of a factor that is. Like, a lot of video games nowadays do not play well. Like, Star Wars Outlaws does not play well. Like, for example, the way that the character interacts with, like, the floor. The way the character interacts with talking to an NPC. Like, there's all of these, like, little things where, like, if something does not play well, then it's bad. It's like New World is a great example of a game that does not play well. Deadlock plays so fucking well. Well, it's a Valve game. Like, Overwatch plays insanely fucking well. It's so good. Like, Classic WoW plays so well. There's Elden Ring plays so well.
Well-known literary works of all time that doesn't rely on the trappings of live service models or in-game shops, selling 10 million copies within days of the game's release, and breaking concurrent player number records with over 2 million players on Steam.
But they're in China.
This shift in player preferences isn't just a fluke. It's a
they're
sign
not
of
real.
a deeper change within consumer
people in China.
behavior. A change that the industry can no longer afford to ignore. Black Myth Wukong was supposed to be just that, a myth. I remember the early trailers.
I remember also, like, I like the idea of the fact that, like, we're getting games that are, like, worldwide, like, global games. I really like that. I think that's super cool. The idea that, like, us and, like, you know, it's like Elden Ring comes out and, like, everybody in China and Japan and like, Russia and, like, America are playing this, like, I think that's so cool. That's awesome to me. So yeah, I hope this keeps happening. Like India, yeah.
And a lot of the dialogue around it at the time, which is that this is an unknown developer, a first-time developer, a Chinese developer using Unreal Engine 5, and well, we already see the history with some of those games. This is likely a scam. I thought it was. Many people thought it was. But it's real. It's so real that it doesn't feel real when you're playing it. This is one of the most gorgeous games that I've played in a long time. It feels great to play. The story is absolutely incredible. Yeah. There is a stop animation cutscene in the best-looking game in 2024. The creativity, originality...
And keep in mind, that stop-action cutscene then later on led to a quest line that was in another act that happened in the past. It was just insane. The cutscenes are beautiful? Yeah. This game redeemed Unreal 5 for me. You know what, man? I can see where you're coming from. Because there's been a lot of games that have been Unreal 5 games, and they've been a disappointment to me. For me, I thought the Vindictus playtest was really great, and that was where I kind of felt like, you know what? Maybe the problem isn't Unreal 5, it's just bad games. But, like, I think Black Myth Wukong is definitely, like, the assurity, right? Lords of the Fallen, they've done a lot to improve. I've wanted to go back and play Lords of the Fallen again. But now, I mean, now with Core Keeper... Like, I just added 100 hours onto my video game obligations.
Quality and beauty of this game is something that many modern developers can't even comprehend. But it's an experience that players have been needing for a long time. Black Myth Wukong is just a damn good game. It's not revolutionizing game design or reinventing the wheel. It's just delivering a high-quality experience at a fair price. I'm a little over 40 hours into the game, and I've taken my time playing it just because it's just that good of an experience that I want to savor it.
Yeah.
The game is exactly what many others have
That's
said.
why I don't want to miss anything.
Gauntlet. You explore areas and fight enemies, discover secrets, take on side quests, but ultimately you are fighting a boss every few minutes because the game just has that many of them.
I think that's one of the reasons why like this game has been very successful, like at least on Twitch too, is that watching boss fights is more interesting than watching people clear trash. Like comparatively, like Elden Ring DLC had a lot of boss fights, which is what made it really popular. So it's like this is kind of a stream focused thing, but I think it's one of the reasons why Black Myth Wukong has been very popular on Twitch. It's more fun to play. Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, for me, I thought it was really fun to play. I love open world games. I do. Like you guys know this. Like Wuthering Waves, like all of those other games. Like I always play all the way through them. I really enjoy them a lot. I actually wish that Black Myth Wukong had more of that, but again, that's just my opinion, right?
I think that one of the things I'm most impressed with is not just how many enemies there are, but how much variety there is in all of these different boss designs, enemy designs, and mechanics throughout the game. I felt like every few seconds I was playing the game, I was already seeing a new enemy type, learning new patterns or attack patterns from them, and
compare that with Dragon's Dogma 2. Dragon's Dogma 2, which should have been as good as Elden Ring. It should have been.
New abilities.
Yep.
Over the last few years, I've been so exhausted with generic AAA reskinning. Studios spending hundreds of millions of dollars, but they just keep copying and pasting the same enemy over and over with a recolor. However, Black Myth Wukong is the embodiment of variety.
Fuck this
Whether
boss.
it's a new enemy type, locations, abilities you learn, or spirits you collect, each time I sat down, I felt like I did not know what to expect. I think variety is really important in a game like this because if you're anything like me, the longer you play a game, the more it drags on, the more repetitive it starts to feel, and the more likely you are to just want to run through every section of the game just trying to get to the finish line because you want to say that you've beaten it.
I am actually not like that. For me, my enjoyment of games goes up over time because, like, I'm very much a slow learner, but I'm very good at mastering things and figuring out everything about them. So, like, the more that I play a game, the more that I want to play the game because now I'm feeling like I'm gaining mastery over the game. Like, for example, like, cap. Okay, I'm going back playing Monster Hunter again, continuing that. Oh, here we go. Here, let's look at Dragon's Dogma. What's this? Where's my achievements that I just got? Wow, level 200, huh? Wow, look at that. Dragon's Dogma 2. Look at this. I'm level 200 and I think 200 in Dragon's Dogma 2. Yeah, it's insane. Yes, look at Starfield. Where's Starfield? Who cares, actually? I don't even know where it is. No, whenever I play games, I want to go all the way in on those games. 200? Yes, I am level 200 in Starfield. That's correct. That's right. There's not an achievement for it. There's an achievement for level 100. There's not an achievement for 200. 200 is insane. Whenever I play games, I beat them.
Black Myth Wukong does not let you go. This game sends out flashes of brilliance at every step, reimagining what the experience of a semi-linear action game can be and pushing the medium forward.
This was so good. Yeah.
I was already impressed with how jaw-droppingly gorgeous this game is. However,
I'm also like, a small thing is going back to previous acts and having things to do in those previous acts. It makes the game feel like it's more immersive and it's less linear. Like, for example, going back and fighting the Red Long, you know?
Ever so often, I would find these lookout points where you would go to sit and meditate, listen to calming music.
People say God of War had this too.
Game's world design and being rewarded with a talent point upon completion.
Yeah.
I'll be real, I don't really normally like this kind of thing. I see it as a waste of time. However, in a game like this, after fighting countless enemies, sweating it out on bosses, these meditation points facilitated making this game feel more like an experience rather than a game. It gave me the time that I needed, a moment to drink it in, refocus, and venture forth.
Well, I think it's also like I'll watch people that play the game, and I actively try to do this while I'm playing and streaming the game, and not just this game, but any other game. And I try to actually like really emphasize the art and the design of the game because I think it creates a more cohesive and comprehensive experience, right? It's more holistic. Like, for example, when I played like the WoW expansion, I tried to look at like, you know, the world and everything, and I give people a really good view of the way that the game is made. I think it adds a lot to the immersion.
I loved it. I remember when I finished Act 2, and I really hope other people share this experience, but I was met with a stop animation cutscene, and I just sat there awestruck. The artistry and imagination on display ripped me away from any other distractions. My attention was fully on the game. My respect was fully on the game. After this, I started taking notice to every sight and sound in the game. How well crafted some of the statues were. How areas never seemed to repeat themselves. How the music would flow in and out, trying to evoke a very specific emotion depending on what you were doing or where you were. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this game's story, character writing, voice acting, musical, and visual production. When I started playing...
I love the rat. I don't know like what the rat does or anything, but he's my favorite character. Yeah, he's so good.
I knew that this game was going to be good, but I never imagined an action game
or
a first-time developer like Game Science to deliver a story experience rather than just telling you a story. You have to listen, truly listen when you're talking to NPCs because they'll often give you hints at side quests and objectives that will deepen your understanding of the story and its meaning.
It unlocks bosses and shit.
It blows my mind how few journalists and professional reviewers took note of how satisfying and unique the narrative delivery and overall experience of playing this game is. There is a timeless appeal to a game like this.
I think that there's a lot of worry inside of, I think, like development studios that places other than, I would say, like them could be making games that can compete with them. So I feel like a Chinese-made game in some capacity is a threat by the nature of the fact that it's a Chinese-made game. Is it now you're having like competition from another place that you can't control that the market can also use as well? Right? The bar gets raised. Well, it is that the bar gets, it's more competition, right? It shouldn't be? Yeah, but that's the way it is. Game Science has potential for upcoming games? Yeah. Journalists focused on different aspects of the game? Yeah, well, that's the problem, right? Is journalists care about things that players don't care about.
It's delivering on something that goes far beyond entertainment. It's something deeper, it's something more personal, and ultimately more satisfying. More satisfying than the vast majority of games I've played over the last few years. And this is one of the reasons why I love seeing smaller studios and new studios come up, is because they get it. They still remember that a game is art first and a product second. And when you're a company like Game Science and you pour everything into a game because it's the game that you want to make and you love what you're making, well, this is the end result. A game that gets...
I think that, like, it's just... I feel like games are art and they're also a product, and it really depends on, like, kind of where you want to draw that line. But at the end of the day, I think the problem is when the people who are doing the art feel like their vision is more important than what players want. And I think that the best example of this was like Shadowlands and WoW. So like in World of Warcraft, there was an expansion that came out, and there was like 7 or 8 different features in this expansion that were like huge handicaps for players that people didn't like having to deal with. And people brought this feedback up over and over and over. They were like, we don't like this. Don't put this in the game. And they were like, we have to put this in the game. And then people quit the game, and then they changed their mind. That's the issue, right? It's not that games are a product or an art, but the fundamental is that the art has to appeal to an audience.
That message across, and it makes a lot of money. The profit comes after. You have to make a great game first.
What do they have to do? They
when I look at
everything.
failures like Concord, or I look at how poorly received Starfield was by its fans, I start seeing studios that have people that are just clocking in rather than locking in. And ultimately,
that's a fucking fact. Absolutely. I wonder like how enthusiastic a lot of these people are about working and like about making their games. That's a really good way to say it. Yeah, that's bars. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I don't think it's sustainable. You can feel the reverence for Journey to the West through Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah, for sure.
You see it in the art.
Absolutely.
You see it in the music. You see it in the characters and the voice acting and the writing, the stop motion and the hand-drawn cutscenes. You see how much respect they have for the work that they were adapting. And for that, I've never been more disgusted with Western media's attempt to ruin it for everyone. As Black Myth Wukong continues to gain traction and impress gamers worldwide, it has also found itself at the center of a made-up controversy, particularly in the form of smear campaigns orchestrated by some Western journalists and media. Particularly in the form of smear campaigns.
Black Myth Wukong's PR strategy of silence has failed? Really? It's failed? That's crazy. Wow. I didn't know that. That's... Damn. Wow.
Orchestrated by some Western journalists and media outlets. These efforts, often subtle yet pervasive, aim to undermine the game's success and cast doubt on its quality and legitimacy. The criticisms of Black Myth Wukong by certain Western outlets like IGN isn't about the game's content. I think it's a reflection of a broader discomfort with the rise of non-Western developers in the AAA space.
I think that's exactly it. He is totally fucking right. It's all about keeping the development space pure, right? Like I'm not trying to make like a, you know, like some sort of like Nazi correlation here, but like keeping it to where like the culture is the same and there can be a monolithic way of expressing that culture. And I think that's what's happened, is that like games like Black Myth Wukong, and I think the same thing's true with like Star Rail and other games that are made from developers that are outside of like the Western area, is that these developers don't care about this. They don't have the same values that like Western developers do. And so Western developers see them as a threat. Because like the truth is that if people have the option, why would somebody want to play a game that's patronizing them?
Developers, the media,
so actual
has no power over.
We're seeing genuine cultural diversity. And this is another issue too, right? Is like the media doesn't have control over like the way that a video game is perceived in China. right? Like some American media company doesn't have control over that, so they don't like it. They want to push it down because like people are afraid of what they can't control and they can't manipulate.
Which I think is all the more obvious as many of them have run to play defense for Sony's recent failure in Concord. The smear campaigns tend to focus on nitpicking details, spreading misinformation, and creating narratives that paint the game in a negative light, hoping, praying that people find them relevant and take their criticism seriously.
Because I'm a legitimate journalist.
Everybody's favorite gaming reviewers in Kotaku took to writing a lengthy review of Black Myth Wukong painted in a temper tantrum. With the introduction reading, "There's a moment in Black Myth Wukong where it is the perfect visual metaphor for the game's hopeful, proud ascension as China's big breakthrough into the Western AAA pantheon. Unfortunately, that moment is restricted, and we can't talk about it."
What?
There are moments in Black Myth Wukong of such enthralling beauty and visual poetry and myth-making, almost unlike anything we've seen in the current AAA gaming space right now. We can't show them to you or discuss their contents. There are realms of lore and mythology and parables and morality plays dancing with such wild
abandon.
abandon.
Are they like NDA? Like, this is the most melodramatic way to say that they're under NDA that I've ever heard.
And fantastical, whimsical, imaginative character work and design, giving depth and beauty and context to the otherwise obtuse narrative of Black Myth Wukong. We can't tell you anything about them. And the review continues like this. What? This childish behavior is in response to a leaked email from Game Science's PR partner asking creators who were given codes to refrain from talking about politics, feminist propaganda, fetishization, and other content that instigates negative discourse. What Kotaku, as well as many other journalists' response to this were, can be easily read as, "We are mad that we aren't allowed to talk about anything that doesn't have to do with the video game, so instead, we're going to write angry reviews with backhanded comments."
Legitimate journalists will take...
Why are these... Oh my god, this is... Oh my god, this is... How is this... How did that...
It's fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. It is the way it is. It's just the way it is. This is why they're going out of business. It's unbelievable. Like, I feel like it'd be pretty damn awkward to only be able to talk about the game. Well, the problem is that that was never the case. This was always... See, and I'm surprised journalists don't know this. I feel like journalists should know this. Like, I just... It's like, you know, what's the thing where it's like you're so stupid that you don't know you're stupid, the Dunning-Kruger effect or something like that? I think that's what it's referred to, right? Yes, yeah. Like, they don't even know what they don't know. It's crazy. All I care about is the game. Why would I read the article otherwise? Yeah.
Issue with this.
I'm going to keep it real. I don't know the context of this email. However, as a creator, this looks like a poorly written briefing for sponsored content.
Here's what happened. It's such a simple fucking explanation, and I've given it 3 times. Hopefully this is the last time I ever have to talk about it again. The reason why this happened is because of Chinese media laws and media expectations. So there are different PR firms that work with different users that are, you know, like, for example, like I own a talent management company. I don't know if you guys know that, right? But I do. Mythic Talent. I'm an owner of Mythic Talent. So you take what, like, I'm not talking about like these specifics of this. And I've also worked with contracts like this. I've been doing contracts like this for like 7 years. I've gone through probably 100 contracts like this. I've read them. Like, I know what it is. I'll tell you exactly what happened. is that there were probably different PR firms that the marketing efforts were outsourced to, and some of them westernized the expectations for the Chinese version, and other ones didn't, and some of the ones that were not westernized got leaked, and then that one was shown. But the truth is that that was done only because the company that made the game was in China, and they had to ask those things because they didn't want to upset the government. That's the reason why it happened. It had nothing to do with the actual values of game science. It had nothing to do with the values of the PR firm. It had nothing to do with the values of the game. It had everything to do with their country and the laws and the culture in their country. And if you didn't understand that, you haven't dealt with a lot of contracts like this. I have. That's how I know. So it's and this is the problem, right? And like, so, and you see like this, what's the word for it? It's like this like feeling of like superiority that people like this have. And they don't even know what they don't understand. That's what I'm saying, right? Like, yeah, like skeletons in the game. Exactly. There are really some things you can't do in China. Exactly, right? But this means some Western devs do that in principle, shouldn't have any limitations imposed by an authoritarian government. They didn't. It was just not translated properly, and it wasn't communicated properly because it probably went through two different channels of communication. That's what really happened. It's not some massive global conspiracy about how China hates feminism or game science doesn't want people to talk about COVID. These are Chinese laws and expectations that just weren't translated properly to a Western content creator or a Western audience. That's it. That's literally it. It's not some complicated fucking conspiracy.
Journalists can seethe all they want. However, if you are paid to do a job, you do the job as instructed. What company is going to pay you to talk about their game and talk about unrelated things to the game that they are paying you to promote?
In a lot of contracts, and I'll kind of break a little bit of the fourth wall here, and you know, I'm not going to, obviously there's a lot of things I can't discuss, but very commonly in contracts there are asks for you not to discuss divisive political topics while you're playing the game. This is an incredibly common expectation and ask for people to have. There's a lot of obviously reasons for that. There are some that make sense, some that don't make as much sense, right? It's basically like they want you to play the game. It's like also like not to talk negatively about, like a lot of games actually have it, don't compare this game to other games in like a negative light or a positive light. Don't say, oh, this is so much better than, you know, like, you know, I don't know, like Call of Duty is so much better than a Fortnite or something like that. Like, don't say that. Be professional, basically. Yeah. And so there are a lot of instances where this is kind of expected. Now, for me, I think I break this rule every single time because I always compare the games because that's what I do. But this is in the contract language, and I think for extreme circumstances, there are obviously going to be conversations about that. It's a stupid rule. It is and it's not, right? But what I'm saying is that like rules like this are very common, and it's that, I mean, I can't show you guys a lot of it, but yeah. Disparaging agreements. Well, non-disparagement is like in general, I think that I've never like seen a contract where it says that you can't say anything bad about the game. But obviously contracts will say, try to emphasize positive things about the game. Of course they're going to say that. Like, it's common sense. But yeah, I mean, like, you can pull back, you know, like, I'll pull back the curtain on this a little bit. And like, yeah, of course this is the case. Like, I mean, this be common sense, yeah. Your job is what you're getting paid to play the game? Yeah, exactly. Don't start shit with our competitors. Yeah, exactly.
Claim censorship, that's fine. But these demands are no different than the expectations of anyone else who has a job, albeit these topics are a little bit more sensitive to China and specifically Black Myth Wukong, as the game has suffered at the hands of IGN and other outlets parroting misinformation about alleged sexism at game science. But they wouldn't understand that, would they? Because after all, they can't even do their own job. I mean, whoever's claiming there is a lack of diversity obviously never finished Chapter 3.
Non-white.
I'm offended by this. Review after review of Black Myth Wukong soured by unconfirmed and
boss was fucking
mistranslated
annoying.
information. Self-righteous, self-serving reviewers turned activists, docking review scores, attempting to push players away from this game, all in the name of their brand of justice. Tell me, where is the
here's also another really big issue. Like, now he's cooking. Game performance is unpolished. This is partially true. I've had issues where game performance was affected too. I think a lot of people have. But the problem, and this is the worst thing, is that legitimate feedback gets overwritten by stupid feedback. And now nobody's talking about actual issues or real feedback. It's all noise about something that's stupid. The odds are you're right that it probably could be just because of my CPU or I had ray tracing on. Sure. But like, those slowdowns were like very, very annoying. And I never had that problem with other games either.
Tell me, where is the justice in docking review scores due to the lack of inclusivity and diversity in an adaptation of one of the most respected novels in China's cultural history? Because it doesn't include your modern beliefs. Wanting to culturally appropriate a game made by a Chinese developer, adapted from a Chinese novel, is beyond disgusting and abhorrent.
Well, these people, I mean, these people think the entire world revolves around them. That's the reason why. Gameplay becomes repetitive over time. I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, like, it's the same game. Like, you get new abilities and stuff like that. Yeah. It's just colonizers. Yeah, it's actually crazy how, like, these are the same people that'll, like, call white people colonizers or say how bad it is that what we did to, like, Native Americans, and then they go and they do it immediately to China. It's just, like, it's crazy because I hope you guys understand that, like, these people would be the people that would be, like, pushing against, like, in a lot of cases, pushing for slavery back in the day. Everybody likes to think that, oh, yeah, well, you know, I'd be the person helping the slaves escape through the Underground Railroad. Yeah, these people would be the police.
You know, there was a game that came out earlier this year, Tales of Kenzera. This really cool Metroidvania game, very creative, that was made by an African developer with African characters.
Yeah.
None of them said anything about diversity then. The logic is never applied evenly because they don't believe in it. It's just a convenient vehicle to maintain relevance. I am beyond happy that Game Science never responded to any of these allegations because they had no responsibility to have to do so. You're not.
There's no reason. This is the way that I think a lot of people should handle controversy. Is that you should handle controversy by just simply not addressing it because it doesn't matter. Nobody actually cares about controversy. It's just all bullshit. Yeah, just ignore it. Like, oh, but what about this one thing that happened with this guy? Shut up. Who cares? Yeah, just totally ignore it. Mr. Beast, yeah. Look at, like, I mean, I think Mr. Beast, honestly, deleting all the comments, you know, like, just basically ignoring it completely. Logan Paul has done this with multiple massive fuck-ups. And it just doesn't matter.
Responsible to game journalists? What authority do they hold?
Yeah.
None. When I look around the industry right now and I see players that are playing games that they're not liking anymore because the game's going in a direction that they don't want, when I see games that are released that are failing and studios that are closing and people that are getting laid off, I'm seeing a lot of games that are being influenced by people that have no real power. Countless weirdos that are trying to shape games the way that they want them to be, rather than what the market wants it to be.
Fucking exactly. Ooh. So fucking exactly. Yep, there it is. Countless Road. Yep, exactly. There it is. Yep.
I respect Game Science's choice here because they just focused on the game and putting the game out there. And at the end of the day, you let the market decide, not these people. I really hope that there are studios that are out there that take notice of this.
There have been. And this is what's going to happen. And then there's also, like, another existential problem that studios have is that, like, China, as far as I know, I mean, I'm not really, like, tuned in on their culture in the same way, but I don't think China views AI as, like, being, like, a moral evil, like generative AI as being a moral evil in the same way that I think Western people, like, or at least, like, some Western audiences try to push it as. So, like, another thing that's going to happen is that the reason they don't, I don't think that they do either. But it seems that way to me, right? Based especially on, like, cultural parallels. But when video games can be generated with AI and more content can be generated with AI in a way that is good enough for users, then this massively puts Western companies at a disadvantage. Because now it's like you have something that can generate the work of 10 people with one person. Well, how do you compete against that? You have to do it. That's how you compete against it. You have to do it. And I think that's another reason why people are worried about other studios from other parts of the world getting into it, because it totally puts their jobs at risk in an existential way through AI and other forms of generative automation.
Realize that they're not responsible to these folks at all.
Mm-hmm.
They have no power over you. Make the game that you want to make. Pour everything you can into the game that you want to make. Release it out into the market and let the market decide if it's enough. You can't make everybody happy. It's impossible. And every time you try to do so, you're just going to make something that has no identity whatsoever.
Well, the big thing is that you can't make people that like to complain happy, because if they stop complaining, they lose power. So people that are complainers will never be happy, because if they are happy, then they lose their relevance.
And it's not going to reach enough players. Concord is proof of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what happened with that game. It has no identity. It's been done before. It came out for $40, and players don't want it. They tried to stop the success of this game, but there was no stopping it.
Well, there's no stopping the success of any of these games, right? I mean, the same thing happened with Pal World. I think Pal World had like the same types of like hate on it that like there were a bunch of like just totally unsubstantiated claims that Pal World was using generative AI. Like people were pushing this, like journalists were pushing this, like, oh yeah, it could be AI, or like Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah, this has happened a lot. It's just that I think that if anything, what it's proved is that the market speaks for itself and nobody speaks for the market. You can't speak for the market and tell people what they like and what they don't like.
Now, as I mentioned previously, within days of the game launching, it had already hit 10 million copies sold. And on the day of its launch, it rose to 2.4 million concurrent players on Steam. Now it's steadily sitting over 1 million players as people have started to complete the game. A popular headline that ran for about a day was that the game had lost 2 million players within a short period of time. At 1400 UTC, the game was at its peak. At 2300 UTC, the game had lost millions of players. Some people had immediately started claiming that the game was being botted. However, this is a clear indication of how popular the game is in China, with many of those players helping Steam to break its all-time concurrent player count across the entire platform, as well as now being the second most played game under PUBG and dethroning Pal World.
Yep.
Now, there's an important story here that's not being discussed. If we look at the top 15 games all-time played on Steam, including free-to-play games, 7 of those games are widely single-player games, while 6 of them are live service, with 2 of them being Lost Ark and New World on life support.
Yep.
With as hard of a push as we have seen with live service games over the last few years...
Live service games are primarily being pushed to make money. That's the reason why. People want to be able to continuously make money with a live service game. And I think that there are too many live service games in the... like, think of a live service game as like a T-Rex in like a dinosaur ecology. You can't have 50 T-Rexes and no Brontosaurus or no Stegosaurus or Triceratops. You have to have all of the different animals because there's an ecosystem that they have to create. Everybody wants to be Fortnite, but you can't have everybody be Fortnite. There's not an economy for that.
Whether it's full live service or games adding adjacent features like in-game shops and battle passes to single-player games, we are seeing a massive shift from the side of the consumers towards single-player experiences. And can you blame us?
Yeah.
Every time I see a new live service game release, I ask, what are you thinking? Players only have so much time and money, and when we are invested in other games, what makes you believe that we're going to come to play your game? Game science.
I've actually really enjoyed a lot of live service games recently, and I actually really like live service games. Like, for example, I really liked playing I liked playing Once Human. I liked playing The First Descendant. I'm not a live service hater. I'm actually, in fact, a live service enjoyer. I really do enjoy them, like same as Wuthering Waves, etc. You're rich, not like us. I mean, I don't know if I have to be rich to play Once Human. I mean, like, you just play the game. Like, you don't have to be rich to play that. Path of Exile, yeah. Like, what do you mean? Zenless Zone Zero, yeah. But like, I don't really think. Do you think that BR type games are in decline? I think that BR games are in a stagnation period right now. I think the last time that BR was innovated was with Warzone. And like Warzone was like the last innovation. I don't see. I feel like I think that now you're seeing users move towards BR as a dying genre. I actually think BR is we're talking about something totally separate. This is total tangent. Like, we talk about this later. But either way, I'm saying like live service games. I love live service games, but there can only be so many in the economy of attention.
Could have easily went and made a gacha game over Black Myth Wukong, but they didn't.
Yeah.
They ignored the trend in their country, and I think it was the right thing to do. And honestly, I think it was foresight more than anything else. Why do you think recently we've gotten games like Grand Blue Fantasy Relink or Stellar Blade, both games made by developers that primarily make and run gacha live service games?
I think this is fucking... MiHoYo needs to do this. Like, for how much fucking money they've had, fuck nuclear power, whatever you're trying to do. Make Sword Art Online and make it good. Yeah, like, if anybody can do it, make Solo Leveling or make Sword Art Online.
Choosing to instead go to make premium games.
Yep.
Developers are waking up to the realization that there are so many players to sell to and not so much time and money that they can invest in other games.
Well, it's also that a lot of these games, like, for example, Stellar Blade or Grand Blue Fantasy, like, I bet a lot of people played Relink and then they thought to themselves, maybe I'll try out the gacha game or the mobile game. Like, these games also function as gateways into the gacha games too, and into playing other games as well. I did, yeah. Grand Blue Fantasy was amazing. Yeah, I mean, I played that a lot.
Sony's Concord, in contrast with Black Myth Wukong, is the perfect example of this. If you're going to release a live service game that costs $40 and brings nothing of value, you won't succeed. We're at a point of saturation in which you can no longer borrow time from players that are invested in other games.
Yeah.
You have to make them quit playing other games to play yours.
Exactly. This is a problem that I have. Like, right now, I simply don't have the time to play all the games that I want to play, given what's going on. And I probably have a lot more free time than a lot of you guys do, right? Like, especially any of you guys that have like kids. Like, I have way more free time than you do, guaranteed. And even for me, I don't have time. So, like, there's a huge time economy. And I think that one other element of Black Myth Wukong that's good, and this is also Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, is that, or Elden Ring, is that they respect the time economy. Like, there's not a million, like, little bullshit things you have to do. It's one of the reasons why I kind of drifted away from playing WoW a lot, is that WoW, I felt like did not respect my time that I was investing into the game. And I felt like in order to get like one minimal gain out of World of Warcraft, I could play an entirely new video game in that time.
Or you have to offer something that isn't a live service so they can play it at their leisure. And this is where Black Myth Wukong and many other premium single-player experiences truly stand out. Unlike the countless live service games that are demanding our time and money for extended periods of time, these games offer a complete, self-contained experience, a premium single-player game that respects our time.
And this is another really big component, is that the respecting of time and the FOMO that a lot of the live service games have functions as a double-edged sword. Like, for example, if MiHoYo said they were going to re-release Genshin Impact, or like they were going to make Genshin Impact 2, I would be playing Genshin Impact 2 on release no matter what. But the reason, one of the things that's like a barrier to entry for me playing Genshin Impact, is that I know that like there's probably 100 characters in that game that I'll never have. And like even with Star Rail, like I know that like for example, I came back, Acheron was really good, and apparently Acheron like synergizes well with I think Black Swan and Sparkle that I don't have. And why is that? Well, it's because I didn't play the game at that time. So it's like now the FOMO actually acts as a barrier to entry. Do you see kind of how that happens? So, like, the FOMO keeps people engaged, it keeps people in, and it also keeps people out. Sparkle rerun right now? No, I'm just saying in general, right? And, like, that's why, and also, like, as the gacha games come out, it's like, how many of these characters are you going to get? Like playing games like this, it's like, it's a huge money investment or time investment to keep doing it. And it's like, at a certain point, you ask yourself, like, why am I really doing this? Like, I'm trying to think of, like, a great live service game, in my opinion. This is just, again, another fucking classic Andy take is World of Warcraft Classic. Because it is a fixed game, basically, and you can pick up where you left off. I think a big problem with a lot of live service games is that they're built around some sort of power creep or power progression that if a player stops playing, they are, like, way farther behind than where they initially were. Yeah, it's like FOMO, like OSRS, yeah.
Our money. It's a game designed to be enjoyed, not endured. And that's something that resonates deeply with players who are growing increasingly disillusioned with the constant grind and monetization schemes that have come to define modern gaming so much. What Black Myth Wukong and similar titles prove is that there is a vast market for games that are focused on delivering a polished experience without reoccurring payments or perpetual engagement. These games remind us of the heart of gaming isn't the endless updates and battle passes, but it's the stories we tell, the worlds we explore, and the characters that we come to care about. In a way, Black Myth Wukong isn't just a commercial success, it's a statement. It's a declaration that players are ready for something different, something that offers more depth and quality.
Well, it's not that players are ready for it. Players have always wanted this. If a game like this, Black Myth Wukong, came out 10 years ago, it would be popular. If it came out 10 years from now, it would be popular. People like good timeless experiences are universal. Like, that's it.
Quantity and gimmicks. It's a challenge to the industry, daring developers to rethink their strategies and remember why players fell in love with gaming in the first place. I can't play more than 1 or 2 live service games, and I do this for a living. I just recently started playing Warframe, and I haven't even been able to find the time to go and play Final Fantasy XIV and complete its latest expansion. Look, I'll be honest with you guys.
It's too much, man.
I'm not rich. I don't make a lot of money doing this. I made more money in construction than I do making YouTube videos, but I do love doing this. And I do think that a lot of people are probably a lot like me, and they just can't afford to be invested in that many games because...
I think that's another thing, being invested into a game. And like, there's a lot of games where you have to like buy battle passes. So it's like if you have to buy a $20 battle pass, and the battle pass is designed in order for the game to feel like a good experience, and you don't have the money for that, well, you're probably just not going to play the game. It's just like, I feel like we're in, it's like just an economy of attention. Like, that's all there is to it. It's an economy of attention, and there are just too many, I don't know, like large predators in the economy. You need more small animals, more little games. You can't have everybody trying to be the T-Rex. Everybody can't be the tiger.
No matter what you say, free to play or not, you're going to end up spending money on it. And putting yourself in a realm where you know you're going to be tempted to spend money, you just can't afford to because you have other things that you're responsible for or other things that you'd rather spend the money on entirely. And it's crazy that game studios have not come to the realization of this, that the more of these games that are out in the wild, the less likely you are to be able to capture an audience because players just can't move that freely. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. We don't have that kind of money, nor do we have that kind of time. And unless you're going to do something to be able to kill another game, that's really the only way that you're going to find success.
And this is why people are like so defensive about gacha games, is that they don't, and this just happened. It literally just happened with Blue Protocol. We actually had a game, bro, this game didn't die. It got aborted. Like, it didn't even come out in the West because the Japanese reception was so bad. Bandai Namco pulled the plug. And I think they made the right call. They did. Like, as somebody who played the game, I watched the gameplay, I saw some videos about it. You did. You made the right call on this game. And it happens, and now, well, what about all the people that invested money and time into Blue Protocol? What happens? It's gone. It's all gone. Vaporized. Into atoms. Disappeared. Down the drain. Poof, that's it.
And it's crazy to me that they also haven't realized how much more predictable the success for a single-player game is, a premium single-player game is, over a live service game. We see countless live service games fail, but single-player games, especially ones that are coming from AAA studios, still usually have their return on investment, as long as the people that are running the studio are smart enough to hire the right amount of people and make sure that they're not spending too much money before releasing the game. But that's a different story for another video. I do think that there's something else to say with this as well, especially looking with how popular this game is in China, because we really don't see that with Western games. The themes for Western games don't really translate to the East as well. That's pretty much across the board. It's with almost every game that's out there. Things are always really popular in the West, but they don't necessarily translate to the East.
PUBG Mobile is super popular in China. I could say that as like one counterpoint, but I think in a general sense, I think that what he's saying is true. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's... I think it becomes increasingly more true the more narratively driven a game is, that it probably would not resonate as much in like Eastern culture as it would here. PUBG is an Eastern game. PUBG is from Korea. It's a Korean game. I thought it was an American game. It was a Korean game. I thought Player Unknown was like an American. I thought it was an American game. Yeah, okay. Well, then there we go. Average American Tech? Yeah, I didn't know that. The studio's Korean? Okay. PUBG is from the same dev as Terra and Elion. I remember Terra was really popular. I don't know whatever happened with that. But yeah, okay, I guess that's not a good example. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's good to know. But yeah, either way, I think especially as things become more narratively driven, it's harder for them to be able to relate to it.
But the thing is that this game had no problem crossing the border the other way.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason for that. The wild popularity of a game like Black Myth Wukong speaks volumes about the current state of the gaming industry, particularly the fatigue that many players have started to feel towards repetitive themes that have dominated Western games for years. While Western developers have traditionally leaned heavily on familiar tropes, be it rehashed mythology, Greek or Norse, endless zombie apocalypses, military shooters, or the well-trodden paths of fantasy and sci-fi, Black Myth Wukong is refreshingly different. It introduces...
I actually don't think the tropes are the problem. I think that people would have no problem replaying some sort of like Greek mythology game or something like that every year as long as it played well. I think this is like icing on the top where it's like a new mythology, but that's not really the reason. Same with like competitive like arena military shooters. People love that shit. Like Counter-Strike is basically the chess of esports. I think it's because it's so easily understandable.
It's a rich tapestry of Chinese culture, mythology, and history that many Western players haven't encountered before. Yeah. And if we have, oftentimes it's been through the lens of another country's perception of Chinese culture, providing a novel experience in a land that often feels stagnant. One of the key reasons why Black Myth Wukong resonates so strongly is precisely because it taps into a cultural and mythological framework that is largely unexplored in Western games. Because we see so few Chinese releases of AAA.
I think he brings up a really good point here. I think this is definitely true, that when you see games that are like covering a topic, like a game built off of like Indian mythology or some type of new mythology is much more interesting to me because I haven't seen it 50 other times. Like, I'd have no problem playing a Norse mythology game every year. That's fine. But this does add to a certain level of like escapism because I'm not as familiar with it.
Quality. The story of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, and his adventures through the journey to the West are legendary in Chinese culture, but are relatively unknown to Western gamers outside of knowing it loosely inspired Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
This unfamiliarity
That's
adds
as
a
far
layer
as I
of
was at.
intrigue and
Yeah.
excitement that Western audiences are eager to explore. The game presents a world filled with strange and fantastical creatures, ancient legends, and philosophy themes that stand in stark contrast to the normal fanfare that we see from Western studios. Earlier in this video, I discussed the variety of enemies and bosses. The reason they can offer that kind of staggering variety is because there are so few of those designs that are used in other games. I need you guys to understand this
Well,
contrast.
it's also because they put a lot of work into it. I think that's the real reason. It's not because there weren't other games that have that. Like, there's tons of games that have tons of variety. It's just that some of them are just fucking lazy. Like, for example, like First Descendant, there's no reason why, like, there's like 2 or 3 bosses that are basically just reskins of each other. Like, it doesn't need to be like that. They're just being lazy.
Is crucial. After years, decades of playing through the same iterations of the same concepts, whether it's the upteenth
Murals are
military
great. Yeah, they
shooter
are.
that's set in a vaguely Middle Eastern conflict, another dark fantasy, gritty post-apocalyptic world overrun by zombies.
Those are the ones for
or
me.
yet another fantasy epic that borrows heavily from Tolkien, players
Yep.
are hungry for something new. Black Myth provides a window into a different cultural worldview, one that feels fresh and invigorating compared to the often formulaic approaches that we've seen in Western games. The aesthetics of Chinese architecture, the fluidity and grace of martial arts, the intricate designs of mythical creatures. I can't tell you guys how many times I lost and had issues fighting certain bosses that used martial arts because none of it was familiar to me. The mechanics were not familiar to me. I'd never seen them
Yeah.
in a game before. These elements combine to create a game that feels both exotic and authentic. It's a world that invites me to not only
I
engage
think it
with
provides like an extra level of escapism for Western audiences because they're experiencing something for the first time. So, like, you know, you're very used to seeing certain different tropes and certain different things play out. Whereas, like, and I think that's why something like Elden Ring was also really popular, is because it just had like a level of escapism to it that was like very unpredictable.
a different type of storytelling, but immerse myself into a cultural experience that is vastly different than what I'm used to.
Yeah.
In an industry where innovation often feels constrained by what's familiar and safe, Black Myth Wukong shows that there is a huge appetite for stories and settings that break the mold. It's a reminder that gaming, as a global medium, has the power to transcend cultural boundaries and introduce players to perspectives, ideas, and experiences that they
And
otherwise...
this is one of the things that I've always thought was like really kind of weird is that like I feel like gaming has done more for like multiculturalism and has like downgraded a lot of like I think xenophobia people have had in like a way that I think almost nothing else has. Because like you're just playing a game from China. Yeah, these guys that made the game are in China. Yeah, we like the game. Or like you're playing with people that live in another country and you get along and everything's fine. And it's not forced. It's not weird. That's just how it is. TikTok did too. Yeah, social media did a lot for it. People always talk about the positive or the negatives, but they don't talk about the positives.
wouldn't have. As the game industry has grown into the largest entertainment industry in the world, it has attracted investors and CEOs who are demanding safety, security, and consistency. And as a response to this, many of these studios have become stale. Many themes have become stale because it's safer to do what worked in the past. Whether it's a live service
What
game...
I think is kind of funny about that is that the safeness is actually becoming a weakness. It's like people are playing it so safe that they end up alienating the original audience and people don't like it and the game doesn't feel exciting. So it's like they try to appeal to being safe and then they achieve the opposite effect.
or repeated themes or entitled journalists, Black Myth Wukong is a wake-up call.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, yeah.
Telling everyone what worked before works no more. I really do think that this game shows that there is a general interest, a general need for something different. And I think Baldur's Gate 3 was one of the first signs of that because the industry had already made the assumption that turn-based games could never reach wider audiences. A game like that could
Honkai
never
Star
be
Rail was
successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, look what it did. And I think that we're just kind of rolling around in a sea of mediocrity, completely devoid of creativity. And games...
I think that if you look at it from a AAA perspective, like if the only time, like if you only get gaming news from television commercials, you probably hate video games. But like just today, we had games like Core Keeper, and there was like that other game that we were talking about. I forgot even which one it was. Like there's a lot of other games that have come out that have been super great. But it's just that these games aren't these AAA games. Forever Winter, that was the other one. Yeah, coming out, it was like September, like I don't know, 15th, 9th, was not 11th. I don't remember what day it was. 24th. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of these new games that are coming out that are great. So I feel like the problem really is just inside of AAA games. I think it's that these AAA gaming studios are investing so much money into these games, they feel the need to dilute the appeal to the game, the appeal of the game, to appeal to like a target audience of everyone. And in doing so, they end up making a game that doesn't appeal to any group of people, and people just don't care about it and they don't buy the game. And I think that also it's reflected in the price of these games. A lot of these games are very expensive, and a lot of the things that cost a lot of money, like for example, like like facial motion control, these are nice things to have, but is this going to make a person play a video game? It's really not. And so there's like a fixation on things that are not important to an audience.
Like Black Myth or Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate 3 are those moments where we get to come up for fresh air and we get reminded of what games can be, what we can realistically expect for the prices that we're spending on some of these games. It's not to say that every single game that comes out should be an absolute massive hit, huge banger, but that's kind of the expectation that we have, that you're at least trying to hit that mark. But
if you want people to pay $70 for a game, it has to be a good game. Like, you can't ask somebody to pay $70 for a fucking video game and it's fucked up on release. Like, that's it. I mean, like, what are we even talking about?
It doesn't feel like that with many of the games that get released, especially for the prices that they're trying to charge. Mm-hmm. Black Myth really does feel fresh. Like, genuinely, it feels fresh. I can't tell you how many times I had problems fighting certain bosses just because I never recognized any of the attack patterns before. Yeah. It threw me for a loop. It felt like I was playing Dark Souls or...
The one boss that really got me there is the guy with the arms tied behind his back, the non-able or whatever. That guy's mechanics really got me fucked up. Like, he was one of the only bosses that it's like, usually, like, I'll try to beat the boss by learning its mechanics and overcoming its mechanics. That guy, I died to him, and I'm like, okay, yeah, now I'm in uncharted territory. I don't know what these fucking moves are. Let's just call in the boys and win this fight. Like, you know, we gotta keep the ball rolling here. Like, I can't beat this dude. Yeah, I died to the non-able. I did. He killed me. He was strangely hard. Well, it was a great fight, but it was just like the way that he was moving was something that I wasn't used to replying to.
Elden Ring on fast forward, yes, I know that it's not a Souls-like game, but with that said, you can't tell me like those bosses don't feel like it. Mm-hmm. Because, man, that big-headed baby. We need to talk about that big-headed baby. Right in the first act, I thought that was the first boss. I took like 2 or 3 hours to kill that thing. And when I did, I was so happy. And then I moved on, and then I found the real first boss, which is the one that gives you the transformation. And
see, this is what happened. So, like, the same thing happened to me where, like, so apparently when Emmy was playing through the game, people kept telling her that I beat that boss in 2 attempts. And she was getting mad because she couldn't beat the boss. The funny fucking thing is that the same thing happened to me. Somebody told me that Duke Dennis beat the boss in like 2 attempts, and I was like, there's no way. There's like, wait, what do you mean? Like, and they're telling me other people beat the boss. He did. Yeah, I was like, he did though? Did he actually? No, did he actually beat the boss in 2 attempts? I was like, because I didn't know the guy was, I watched him play a little bit of Elden Ring. I didn't know he was a gamer like that. And I was sitting there like, am I fucking garbage? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, yeah. Shot about him in 3 attempts. Dude, it took me a while. It did. It took me a bit. Shroud beat him first try. That's the thing, is people would say like, oh, Shroud already cleared this. Or, oh, yeah, like this guy already beat it. And it's like, usually it's not even true, but it would make me mad. I'm like, there's no way they're getting ahead of me.
Would have had that transformation,
Dukes
it would
of
have made
Gamers,
that
Capital
fight
G? I guess
so
so.
much easier. I would have beaten it way earlier than what I did. But, I mean, with that said, the rest of the game felt a lot more easier after that. But it's just been so refreshing. It really has. I initially went to stream the game because I like streaming games, right? I like having folks watch. But it's one of those games, and I feel like there's a lot of them that are out there that are like this, where I don't really want to have an audience for it because I just wanted to sit back and experience it. Because if you treat it like one of those kind of games, it really is an experience. There are so many times that I just got lost looking at some of the statues, how highly detailed they were, how completely different they were no matter where you went, which is crazy in a game like that, especially when you would think that they would reuse a lot of assets, but they don't. There's so much originality and artistry on display in this game. It is staggering. Unreal. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, was not only just to appreciate the game for what it is, but also to push back against a lot of the narratives that are out there around it, because they just don't appreciate it. They don't appreciate it because they didn't bend to what these Western journalists wanted them to say. And it's ridiculous. It's childish.
Yeah, we created a narrative about you. Please talk us off the cliff that we put you on. Please explain, please... We are now judging you. We've decided that now you're being tried for these crimes. How do you respond? We don't? Oh, well, wait, what? What do you mean you don't respond?
And it's really disappointing as a consumer, because these are the people that are trying to be tastemakers.
Absolutely.
Sorry, my voice. I've talked a lot. Continually for a very long time, losing my voice now. It's disappointing as a consumer, because the thing is that it's just going to show that you really can't trust anyone other than yourself. You can't.
If you want to know whether a game is good or not, watch somebody play it on stream or watch a YouTube video of it. That's what I do. Very fucking simple.
Can't read what they say, because often it's going to be steeped in criticisms that are so biased, it's unreal.
Or like find a creator, like if you guys like what I like,
you read some of these
watch
things,
me,
it
watch
blows
him.
my mind the way that they would try to paint this
tons
game
of people.
and kind of picture that they've been trying to paint it in. It really is sad. Their relevance is burning up faster than I can make videos on it.
It sure is.
But yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I absolutely enjoy making videos like this. These are my favorite videos to make. I think you guys know that by now. Many of you have actually subscribed because of the wake-up call videos. I keep calling. They don't pick up the phone.
Yeah, I wonder why.
But anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to share this video. Give it a like. Drop a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this. And catch me live on Twitch if you guys want to hear me talk about gaming news and whatever else. Outside of that, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends. I'll catch you next time. Peace.
I think that he brought up a lot of really, really good points, especially about how, like a lot of it is, it's like an existential threat of having developers that are from places in the world that aren't accountable to your version of, like, looking at the world.